Do not adjust your sets. It is Thursday. You know what that means. Wrestling chat with friends. I am your host, Cheats. I am joined, as always, EJ the Collector. EJ, how you feeling today?
I'm here. I'm present. I'm accounted for, and I'm accountable. We got a big show tonight. Great to see you, Cheats. Great to see everybody. Collector's Choice. Get it out of the way. Picked up a few packs this past Monday from our friends at Graybos. They run a wrestling card auction. They do breaks, personal breaks, and I won these 3 auctions: some NXT cards, a couple of Revolution cards.
Who do you have there? Who do you have? We need to see who they are.
On the top here, I have a Raquel Gonzalez, as she was known in NXT. Now she's Raquel Rodriguez. The Charlotte Flair Shockwave at the top of this pack, and a Sasha Banks Vortex. These are from 2022, so these are not 2023 cards with her Mercedes Moné gimmick she's got going on. The Monday Graybos show, where you bid on wrestling packs, is hosted by our friend and new Tuesday co-host Kelsey. She does it for Graybos. Graybos has a partnership on the Drip app where you can bid on cards, you can buy packs from their store, break them open. And Kelsey on Monday nights watches Raw. She'll break them open with everybody, and she's she's a good co-host on Tuesday now too. So these are my collectors. There's a mellow in here. What I may do, Cheats, I may save these up and then send them up to Victor in New York after I get a bunch of these. So
that'll be fantastic. That's a great idea.
Man. Let's get it on tonight.
Let's get it on tonight. I'm glad you got some NXT cards, but this is Thursday night, so we're doing a couple things. We just wrapped up Forbidden Door. Dynamite was last night. We're talking a lot of things AEW tonight. But before we do that, this is Wrestling Chat with Friends, and I'm very excited that we have some friends joining us. I'm going to bring him in right now. Look at that. It is Jeff, Hitman Hall, and Ryan. These guys are from the Wrestling Purists Podcast out in Fredericksburg, Virginia. I'm so excited when I found them. Look, gentlemen, welcome to Wrestling Chat with Friends.
Go ahead, God.
Thanks. Thanks. You can tell this is our first time, right?
Well, look, I was so pumped to find your show, so pumped to know that you're in the Commonwealth, just like we are, about less than an hour up the road. I did some digging, did some listening. I love the show. Absolutely love the show. I want you guys to tell us in your own words how the show came about, how long you've been doing it, and kind of what's the gist of the Wrestling Purists.
Well, first, this is going to be for EJ the Collector. So this is when I picked up AEW Fight Forever today.
Hey!
Okay. So
I'm looking good,
Ryan.
Who's on the cover? Rattle the names off.
Oh gosh, we
just
got
the cover right there.
Sting, Orange Cassidy, Bryan Danielson, Jericho, MJF, Moxley, Hangman, Omega, and Dr. Britt Baker. DMD.
Top names.
That's awesome. That is awesome, Ryan.
With that, I got the Matt Jackson Ryu set.
Look behind EJ the Collector. Do you see
all
right? AEW figures?
I know, right? So not only with that, because every Ryu needs a Ken. So got them both.
Wow.
Got them sweet.
Are those numbered on the side? Like,
oh yeah.
What numbers are they?
We got number 1, number 2. You're a bigger collector than I am, so maybe there's another number I'm missing.
Look at that.
These are the only 2 they had in the entire store.
So. Goodbye. You never pass something like that up, especially when you get a rare figures like that. Fantastic.
That's awesome.
Oh yeah, good pull. But yeah, so we kind of started podcasting right after the pandemic started, as did everybody else who had, a computer and a microphone. So the first podcast that we actually did was with one of our really good friends. It was called Podcast World Order. I'll give them a little shout out there.
I love it.
And it was just me, Jeff, and about 2 to 3 other guys about once or twice a week, just talking wrestling. And, it was more about the camaraderie and, the brotherhood that we kind of all shared, and the wrestling community is incredibly diverse and extended. And it was just fun that once or twice a week, on top of the 10 plus hours of wrestling we watch every week anyway, to just come together for like, an hour or two and really just talk about what's going on in wrestling. There were obviously a lot of releases, so we got to, kind of predict some things and talk about a lot of, get in depth. So during that whole stretch, any real Ring of Honor talent that we reached out to about maybe checking us out offered to come on for an interview. Every single one of them. Every single one of them.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we had both. We had both of the bouncers. We had Caprice Coleman, Ian Riccaboni. We had the legend himself, Kerry Silken, on, and Jeff's a big old school Ring of Honor guy. So it was really everybody and anybody that Ring of Honor we could get, and they were just very open to it. And Ring of Honor is obviously a different phase of it now, but back then it was the whole premise of doing the interviews was that they wanted to keep the spirit of Ring of Honor alive, and they really wanted to give back to the fans during that time where they couldn't put on shows. So that's kind of where our interview process started. And we haven't done as many since we've had our new podcast. We started in November of 2021, just Jeff and myself. And we essentially are, number one product that we have. We go ahead and call it Retro Review, and we take any show from the past and bring it to the present. And if it's good, it's good. If it's bad, we go ahead and call it bad. It's essentially no holds barred. We talk about it. We dive in depth. There's a lot of hidden gems that we knew were hidden gems, but some gems that you watch maybe as a kid or a teenager that you watch 20 years later, they don't age well. And for more chances than not, Jeff is a big WCW guy, a big NWA, early Ring of Honor guy. I will give him that every day of the week. I'm more of like an Attitude Era.
Good
ruthless aggression.
balance.
Also TNA guy. Jeff's not a TNA guy. I'm a big TNA Impact guy. So, whenever there's a split there, it's always very interesting to tune in.
That's awesome.
Really, the base of what we do. We're not out here clout chasing. We're not out here for really anything else. I actually met Jeff, coaching high school football here locally. And I've known Jeff since about 2017. And what started as being, coaching together has turned out to be a lifelong friendship. So it's just incredibly awesome to have him as my tag team partner.
That's a fantastic story. Jeff, you sound like a man after our own sensibilities. We're big NWA territory, WCW guys. Tell us a little bit about what got you into saying, okay, Ryan, I'm going to do this podcast, or I'm going to be on this podcast. How'd you get into this world?
So I tend to be more, not reserved, but, being on screen kind of isn't my thing. I love talking wrestling. I've been doing it my whole entire life. So just the idea of a podcast was cool, but then you also think to the point where, does somebody really care what I think or what I have to say? It's interesting. So like Todd said, we were coaching high school football. Me and some of the other guys, like in our wrestling queue, also coach high school football. And me and a buddy of mine named Pat, he made a joke, like a wrestling joke, because we would just shoot him at each other, inside. Nobody else knew what we were talking about, just us two, while we're coaching football and all that. And Todd's like, well, I like, I'm into wrestling, and us as wrestling fans, we tend to eat our own and just tear our own to pieces. So I turn and I'm like, yeah, but like I live wrestling. You look at someone and you're like, well, yeah, but you don't really watch wrestling. Oh no, come to find out I was wrong. He actually watches wrestling, and he's a mark, and we're all marks, and that's how it is. So when he said he wanted to get into the podcasting landscape, I said, sure, no problem. And the stuff he does behind the scenes, I'm sure with the same with you guys that you do, it's so much more behind the scenes that people don't see. They just see the finished product. But yeah, I wouldn't trade it for the world. And I think pro wrestling is the fellowship of pro wrestling brings, if you're in, you're in, but it just brings everybody together. So yeah, we're here.
I think that what you just said is amazing, because wrestling is it really is just a carny business. So when you make a connection with either a stranger or a friend that you realize you both have the professional wrestling itch, that friendship's already built in solid, because you have just a wealth of things to talk about. Not only talk about things, but just opinions and memories. So I have also experienced moments like you just described about meeting each other. Cheats and I met sort of under similar circumstances and discovered we both had this appreciation. And what I dig, what I'm hearing is you sound like if we're lucky enough, we have an uncle or a brother that you've talked wrestling with since you were a kid. You get your friends. What your show sounds like, and I've seen it, and our show is too, it's like a group thread text chat about wrestling, reminding each other. We're bringing it to the podcast world. We're bringing it on video and talking about it. And again, it brings everybody who has this almost sort of weird carny fetish, together as a support group, because wrestling friggin' rules.
Talk to us about, like you said, the kind of the signature product, because I do love it. The retro reviews, that's what it's called? That's the title. Who came up with retro reviews? And just tell me, like, how I know what it is because you explained it, but tell us how'd you get that idea? Because it's exciting. And then do you go back and watch them like at the same time and comment on them live? Tell us a little bit about retro reviews and how that works for the show.
Yeah, so I will say this, that Jeff gives me way more credit than I think is due. Everything is pretty much 50-50 with us. I'll come up, with a schedule of shows that we can watch. I'll shoot them over to him. Some things he'll be like, well, I don't want to watch this, which, more times than not, it's either, TNA Impact or it's WWE from the Super Cena era. And he's like, I'm not feeling that. Or we'll come up on a week where and this just happened to me maybe a few months back. I started watching a show and it was like a match or two in, and I won't say the show name.
Say it.
It was.
What does it rhyme with?
Schmevolution 2018. There you go. I got about a match or two in, and I messaged Jeff, and I was like, I just can't do this. I can't. And there are shows that I think that when they don't age well, they're still entertaining to watch just because it's a time capsule. And we'll do like early to mid WCW shows, and it's like you'll see signs in the crowd, or you'll see people pop for one finish more than the other, and it's like, wow, kayfabe was an actual thing, and now obviously the curtain's pulled back, everything's full out in the open, but everything's pretty loose with us. We watch the current product. And when we were doing our earlier podcast, it was something that I kind of started on my own at first. And I even went under the moniker of Cod Sinclair. And I was the kayfabe son of Cod Sinclair from Ring of Honor.
I like it.
And it was actually called Referee's Discretion. So I came on screen. I had referee shirts. I gave each match a 1, 2, or a 3 count. It was definitely full. It was full speed ahead with that.
This is method acting. This is living the gimmick.
Seriously, and I still have not seen my dad since then. So, but it was more or less not what I really wanted as far as the feedback. It wasn't what I was feeling. So I went and I transitioned from that to just doing single matches, and I had a little bit more steam with that, but it just wasn't as fulfilling for me, and I felt more fulfilled doing the full cards and just talking about them. And it was being able to go a little bit more in depth. And like I said earlier, the time capsule piece is really big for us, just being able to see how wrestling has progressed over the last 30 to 40 years. And so I'm kind of teeter-tottering here, but I went from the full match card to the single matches for a while. And then we came across just one point, and I was like, Jeff, do you want to watch a show with me? And it was, I believe it was Halloween Havoc 92 or 94. Ooh. And he was like, yeah, sure. Never done this before, but sure. Why not? And it kind of sprung from there. And we just kind of had a pretty good chemistry, and we do not watch shows together. That's a big thing for me. And that was the only thing I asked, is that we don't watch shows together unless it's like a special event or we're doing like some type of live stream or something. And the reason being is I think that when, like, say we go to like a local wrestling show and, we're with friends, I think that there's a part of us that can kind of be persuaded to maybe think one way or the other or react one way or the other. I know myself personally, if I go to a wrestling show, I just want to go to watch it, and I want to go and enjoy it as a fan. But if I'm with, a group of friends, maybe they haven't seen a talent before. Maybe it's going to take my mind away from, maybe it's the way they get on the turn, get on, the second rope. Maybe it's the way that they're, hitting off the ropes. There's a lot of distractions there. And Jeff and I are so like-minded as it is that I feel like we would get to the end of a match and it'd be like, oh yeah, it was good. It was solid, this, all of that. And we would just be like, oh yeah, agreed. It's fine. And to me, it would kind of just be a stalemate at that point. It wouldn't really build a whole lot of intrigue for an actual podcast. So that's why I don't like to do shows together, because he watches on his own. He builds his own opinion. I watch mine. I do the same thing. And then we just come together. And like I said, we've been coming up on like a year and a half now, I think. And it's a really good balance. Everything is completely 50-50. And Jeff's a little bit more outspoken than I am most times, than none.
With the analysis, you mean with the analysis?
In general, but
okay. Very nice.
But no, our only guideline really is to just be a decent human. Don't be a complete scumbag. I mean, like we were just saying earlier before we came on, everybody has a backstage wrestling story, and some people don't appear as who they are. Mm-hmm. So we kind of, if it's a fact, it's a fact, and just leave it at that. But there are some times when we're talking about an AEW show or a Raw show, and there's something that just doesn't click, and it's just off the handle. So, our only rule is just to be a decent human. Just come on, just talk some wrestling. And Jeff's the perfect guy for that.
Halloween Havoc 1994, was that the triple cage with Abdul the Butcher and the electric chair?
Yeah.
Yes.
just making sure.
So that's a good question, a good segue, EJ, because I wanted to ask you mentioned some shows don't hold up as well, if you look at them in 2023. What are some of the shows that you've watched from the past that you think absolutely held up and were amazing shows?
Oh, wow, that's a long question. Jeff,
man,
go ahead and start.
So it's hit or miss. So to touch on what you asked before as well, in my opinion, I'm a proponent of wrestling is never going to be as great as it was. That's just my opinion. through kayfabe and territory and
I like it.
And TV syndication and all that type of stuff.
We're never going back.
In addition to that, our brains will never be in that place again too.
Yes.
It's our own personal experiences too, which drove a lot of that also.
Yes. Now the obviously the athletes in the physical wrestling. Yes, I'm not. That's not my argument, but I mean, just as in how you could immerse yourself. So with that being said, we go back and watch these shows, and sometimes, a lot of times there are complete, absolute gems, especially early. Jim Crockett promotion stuff is great, but really to me, late 80s, early 90s WCW, you get this overlap of wrestling, so guys from the 70s that are 70, 80, 90s, about 30 years in, 25 years in. But then you also have your new up and coming guys in the 90s that are now, like your Jericho or your, so you have these guys overlapping. I can't remember. We did a WCW,
like a Clash of Champions you're talking about, maybe, or something like that. Or?
Yeah, we did a WCW like Hall of Fame where you had like Gordon Soley and Bockwinkel and just it was somebody else on there. It wasn't Flash Funk. It was another name where you like if I had told you, hey, all these three guys were on a card, you'd be like, no way. But yeah, because that's just kind of that overlap time in WCW. So I tend to be again, to me, older wrestling is my deal. But with that being said, I am a purist, but not all the way, because everything old isn't better than everything new. For every Tully match, or TA I quit match, then you have Lodi and Sick Boy and Lash LaRue. So there's a give and take to everything. Me personally, I just try to keep the wrestling started before 2017 going.
Right.
And there is good wrestling out there in the past. So
wrestling started before 1997 also. That's what people got to be reminded of sometimes also.
Well, if I can go off script here, the Attitude Era is, if you really want to get serious, the Attitude
Let's
Era
get serious.
Is actually what killed wrestling. But
the Attitude Era or the Monday Night Wars specifically?
Both. I mean, both, I guess. Yeah.
The Attitude Era bred the NWO, which was a complete sea change. I'd be curious to expand on why the Attitude Era killed wrestling. You can give
just because I think you two gentlemen seem like wrestling purists as yourself. You've been around long enough.
Mm-hmm.
I think, like I said, as much as I can get on AEW until the cows come home, because I'm going to, we also, if you look back to the Attitude Era, there's a lot of good stuff. But I think people over time become jaded. When you really start remembering back some of those Raws and some of those TV tapings, like there are some things, like I can't be mad at a mimosa. Like I can't, MF a mimosa match, and then Big Show's getting his dad's coffin drugged between a funeral.
So you're talking about some of the angles and storylines. Okay, I'm with you.
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. I'm sorry, not wrestling and performing. I mean, some of the skits and bits. Like Mae Young giving birth to a hand.
Absolutely. There's endless ones. Val Venus getting strung up and being castrated. Absolutely.
Choppy.
If anyone goes down any rabbit holes on YouTube of the Attitude Era, there are any number of ones that not only will you say, oh, they can't put this on TV now. There's ones that would say this would get a company canceled, and in most cases, rightfully so. So from that aspect, I see it more and more as more and more weird wrestling comes across my feed. Most definitely. So from that argument, I would agree with you.
Yeah. Again, I'm sorry. Let me clarify myself. Yeah, I didn't mean like the work. No, the work. God, I hate the word work rate, but the wrestling acumen was fine, and the ability in the ring, matches, all that stuff was good. It was the other stuff.
And there were some compelling stories at the top, and it has bred into what sort of modern day WWE and AEW is today.
In many ways, I'm with you guys. Well, I'm with you, Jeff, I believe, because I am not an Attitude Era guy. It's one of my least favorite. I mean, I watched wrestling throughout the whole time. But it overall, outside of some of the obvious, like really big storylines and plots, it wasn't necessarily, because again, I was a WCW, I was an NWA WCW guy, and to me, the other side for a very long time was just represented by characters and clowns, and then the Attitude Era hits, and it's like everything's on steroids. But let me ask, because I want to go back, both of you. I want to ask both of you this. Who are the guys that you gravitated to growing up, helped you fall in love with wrestling? Who are your Mount Rushmore, if you will, of wrestlers?
I'm going to pass to Jeff because this question is so much easier for him as far as the only person he's ever gravitated to, only person he's ever liked in his entire life. Okay?
I can't wait to hear this.
It's only one?
No, this is hard. So when you have to answer this, it's because there's some that, well, the greatest wrestler of all time is Ric Flair, and that's point blank period. It's not up for discussion. It just isn't. I don't want to hear anything about it. I just don't. Me and
you agree, Jeff. Me and you agree.
Because people don't understand like I said, TV syndication and taking a belt and getting on a jet and flying over here and making it like, their brains can't fathom it anymore. So they don't even understand it. Like they don't understand territory. They don't understand making money. They don't understand turning houses. They don't get it. So Ric Flair is one. So you can throw him out. You know what I'm saying? Not throw him out, but he's
at the top.
We get it. Yeah, we totally get it.
Okay.
He's at the top.
He's at the top. Man, for me, I'm a Bret Hart guy. If you don't know, I love Bret Hart.
Okay. So in a similar vein, I can see where you're going with this.
This is kind of, I would say not so much a Mount Rushmore. I would just say, my favorite and not in any order. You know what I'm saying? So I would go Flair. I would go Flair, Bret Hart. This is just niche for me because I love him, and I know he gets a lot of stick for some of his stuff, later in life. But Terry Funk to me is one of my favorite wrestlers, not so much like deathmatch Terry Funk, but back in the day when you start
Texas Terry Funk.
Yes, when you're talking about Dory Funk Jr., just all that stuff and the stuff with the Von Erichs and all that. Like I love Terry Funk.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man, you can't have. Geez, I don't think you're gonna like this, but you can't have a wrestling list without saying your vitamins and eating your prayers, brother. You can't do it. You know what I'm saying?
Ryan's all in. Ryan's all in. We're not big Hogan fans over here, so we're not one of those guys. But Ryan,
without clanging and banging, brother, you have to. And again, by no means is he a good wrestler, but if you're talking about influence and what he has done for wrestling, you have to. And I'm forgetting 10 other people, I'm sure, but
we're all practical here. If you're talking about if you're measuring this on influence, then Hogan is above Flair, and you can't really even argue that either. On influence, no.
You gotta wait a second, and I'm gonna bring my guys in from No Words Barred here because you gotta understand we're black, and what I mean by that is
preach.
Ric Flair for black people was equally as influential as Hulk Hogan in wrestling world. So you gotta understand the cultural impact of what like Ric Flair's and Migos songs right now. Like this is a whole different thing, I think, for black people. So I get it. Ryan, chime in here. Who did you gravitate to? And we do have our friends from No Words Barred coming on pretty soon as well. They're already in the queue. And look, Mo's chopping at the bit. I see him running around and doing laps in the back there. Ryan, who are the wrestlers you gravitated to?
I will say that the first wrestling show that I can remember, WrestleMania 12, which is most notable for the Iron Man match between Bret Hart and HBK. But the reason that was the first show that I watched, and I watched a lot of stuff on TV, but every Friday you would go into the video store, you would go look at games, you would go to look for your Super Nintendo games, what have you. But then something in me just gravitated towards just going to look into that sports section, and that was the first show on VHS I watched. It was not Rewound, which is a dick move, but so I had to waste time doing that to start it over. So guys like Brett, I know Jeff's not a Shawn guy, but Shawn Michaels is one of the best to ever do it. As far as my Mount Rushmore, it's very similar to Jeff's. Flair, Brett, Hogan. For as much as a politician Hogan is, it can't be said for how he's kind of taken professional wrestling in whatever era he's been in, except for TNA in 2010. We're not going to talk about that. And kind of platoon it to the next era of professional wrestling. When he went to WCW in the mid to late 90s, it was a parade, balloons, streamers, everybody getting on Baywatch now, having shows at the beach.
Yep.
It's
Blast at the Beach. Is that what it's called?
Bash at the Beach. Might as well be blasted. People be blasted. But the one name that I will throw in here is The Rock. And I think that there is a place for him on somebody's Mount Rushmore. I think that not only is he a guy like Flair, like Brett, that is kind of in that tweener phase. Like he could be a really dastardly heel or a really popular hot white meat baby face. But it can't. we can't have Mount Rushmore and not have The Rock on it when he laid the pavement for guys to take that next step in, like Hollywood, getting more eyes onto the product. So guys like Cena, guys like Batista, he paved the way for those guys. And while he was doing that, he left and came back, and he still gave the in-ring work that he was. And I think that when we talk about a Mount Rushmore, we take a lot of things in, consideration, work rate. Sorry, Jeff. We go into, how were they, title runs, all that stuff. Popular culture is something that I think gets overlooked a lot in discussions like this. Hogan's never going to have that issue. I think that he's on anybody's Mount Rushmore. He should be. But popular culture, guys like The Rock, are just once in a million.
Absolutely. This is a great answer, gentlemen. I love this conversation, but we're about to make this show even more super because we're bringing in I don't think we've ever had 6 people on the show at one time before, but we're going to try to make it work. We're going to try to make it work because we're bringing in our homies, our family podcast friends. No words barred. Chris, Mo, you've been listening into the conversation. Yeah. I know.
Yes.
I know you. Look, I know you've been taking it down. My question, because I saw Mo was chomping at the bit when we talked about the cultural impact of Ric Flair versus Hollywood Hulk, Eat Your Vitamins Hulk, WWE. Who do you, again, talk to me.
Flair.
I guess the question is, all right, go ahead, Mo. Take
Flair.
it.
First of all, Flair, influence, Ric Flair. Ric Flair, he is the genre of rap music.
Coming in hot.
The genre of rap music was also built on the shoulders of Ric Flair. Okay? The flashiness, the braggadocious egos and all that stuff.
Oh my God.
The wardrobe. You name any rapper out there, there's probably in the rap game, there's probably the two people that probably has most influences is Scarface and Ric Flair. I'm sorry. And Hogan,
that's crazy.
As a kid, I was a Hogan person. I'm from the Northeast.
Oh man.
So I was more biased towards WWF.
That's right, because you're a New York guy, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I was around that more than WCW, but Hogan, it's hard because what he did in not only he was the original Mr. WrestleMania in Hogan, that was a marriage made in heaven.
It was,
for if you take politics aside from it, and then as Jeff was talking earlier, man, NWO, comes in effect in WCW, and the impact of Hogan's character on there, for the wrestler side, if you want, Hogan is probably one of the more he has more influence within the wrestling world, I feel like. More than just, globally. Ric Flair, man.
I think it's a
little bit of the inverse.
I think it's a black culture thing.
But
I think Hogan's bigger. I think Hogan is definitely a bigger influence in popular culture and wrestling culture, regarding cultural influence.
Oh yeah.
But in regards to, my world was very small growing up in many ways. One, and also being in Virginia, like I said, I was an NWA WCW guy, which means, again, that I like when it was we lived and died by those arguments. Who's better, Ric Flair or Hulk Hogan, before they ever joined the same company? Right. It was just like the perfect thing. Chris, I'm going to turn this over to you. Then we are going to talk some AEW Forbidden Door. Who cultural impact, popular culture influence? I love this question. Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair. Who do you got?
Well, for me, it's going to be Flair. Especially when I grew up and got older and started looking into more of the territories and started watching more of the in-ring work of Flair. Like, as far as like a wrestler, yes, light years ahead is the Nature Boy. And yes, of course, he's also very influential within Black culture. There's 2 people, or I will say 3. It's Ric Flair, Macho Man Randy Savage, Dream Dusty Rhodes. All influence Black culture in so many ways, and they gave back in so many ways as well. And in terms of Hogan, yeah, of course, like he's a global icon. You know, he was the flag bearer of the WWF in the 1980s, you know, in the rock and roll era, and then coming into WCW and with the NWO, that revitalized his career. Yeah,
there's
becoming
a whole...
Hollywood that changed everything. In some aspects, when he became Hollywood, that's when he started integrating more into, you know, Black culture and like the later generations that came afterwards.
Absolutely, like the orange and red American.
No one was really fucking with orange and red like that.
And here's the thing though, and I don't know this because I'm not. I'm obviously I wasn't raised in the North. I definitely wasn't raised in the Northeast. I could be wrong, but I'm gonna have to research this theory. But my theory is, Black people in the South really rock with wrestling. And so therefore, Ric Flair in those territories was like a real thing. Whereas, like, I don't know if Black people in the Northeast was really messing with, like, I know people were messing with wrestling, but I don't know if it's like that cultural impact was like WWE back when like Coco Beware was wearing a parrot.
No, you're 100% spot on. If you go back and you look, Jim Crockett Promotions, you're talking really Richmond and South, you know, Charlotte, North Carolina,
Baltimore and South. Yeah,
fair is the Mecca. But yeah, I'm with you 100%. The Northeast, I mean, you know, they had, when it was WWF, they had Pedro and they had Bruno and they had that, but it wasn't really a stronghold like the South was. And like you were talking about family, like for me, whether I was going to like wrestling no matter what, because I didn't have a point. I didn't have a choice. My grandma was into it. My family, my grandma punched Blackjack Mulligan at the Richmond Coliseum. So you're just born into it.
Love it.
For us in the South, at least, you know, we were just born into it. So it is what it is.
Gentlemen, I want to switch gears a little bit. We have got a super show. EJ, how you feeling? We got to look at this. We got a super show, WCWF, No Words Barred, the Wrestling Purists Podcast. It is huge.
I'm amongst my people right now.
But is it as huge as Forbidden Door? Do you like that segue?
That was fantastic. That was fantastic because Forbidden Door was huge.
Because it's the merging of worlds, different shows coming together. I do want to bring up, and I know I've got it up. You can't see it on the sheet, but one thing I learned that I told myself I was going to steal from the Wrestling Purists podcast is that sheet that you did before Forbidden Door, where each of you had your picks. I love it. It's on Twitter. Everybody can every pay-per-view big event. We go through our picks. We never write them down. We go back to the recap show. We're trying to remember who picked what and what we thought was going to happen. You guys had your picks laid out. And uncanny in the number of picks you got correct, Wrestling Purist. You guys are all over this.
Yep.
But I did want there's a couple big things I wanted to ask about, and even if you didn't watch the show verbatim, the topic I think everybody can follow, because MJF. This is where I want to start. EJ knows where I'm going with this. MJF is the AEW World Heavyweight Champion. He has the A belt, the Triple B. He should be the biggest star in the company. However, he opens Forbidden Door. He's in the opening match. It is not by any means against Tanahashi, something that was built as even one of the three biggest matches on the card. And AEW does this thing where, I guess this is part of the stick, but it's like MJF is out of the arena on a plane before half the card even starts, because obviously AEW's pay-per-views are like 15 hours long. Let me ask this for all of you involved. Again, you don't even have to watch the match. The fact that AEW puts their A champion, their generational star on the card first without a big match buildup, and then have the gimmick of him being out of the arena before, Ospreay and Omega or Danielson, Okada. Like, is this a mistake? What do we think overall about this approach to the heavyweight champion of the world?
I'll start if you guys don't mind.
Good.
You're right. And this is the problem with this company. It's once everybody realizes that Tony Khan he created this company to book wrestling so he could book his own promotion. Fair. He didn't create this company to actually make money. And those are two different things. Like it's going to make money. Like, don't get me wrong. It's going to turn some dollars, but it was just so Tony Khan could book his own thing. And MJF is an absolute generational talent. He could be a heavyweight champion now. He could have been a heavyweight champion in Jim Crockett Promotions. He could have been a heavyweight champion in Attitude Era. He's that damn good. And they don't have anybody for him to wrestle. And now this is just my opinion as a wrestling purist. And you know why? Because he's not going to have, well, he can, but he's not having matches for stars. He's having good matches. He doesn't flip. He's not doing he's not doing tope suicidas. He's not doing that. So, so now they book themselves into a corner. Everybody knows Kenny and Ospreay's gonna have a good match. It's not shocking to me. Not at all. Not at this point. But yeah, it's bad booking in my opinion.
Are we misusing the champion, guys? EJ, what do you think?
My opinion on this whole, and I hadn't really thought about it in the way you had brought it up, but my overall is while risky, in the absence of a couple of unique circumstances, this would have been a questionable move to, like you said, to have your A champion of the bigger of the two promotions in America leading it off. One, and I think it's been said because he is this character, this is the character he's been building. The idea to have him a week before show disinterest, even tease not showing up. Some of it's a little bit of a callback to his previous behavior, no showing events, but he is right now portraying a heel of such magnitude as world champion that they were able to afford to run it like this because of the unique circumstance of having Kenny and Bryan Danielson healthy and on the card, where a couple of natural fits for Forbidden Door worked just as well, if not better, than having your world champion in a main event match. So I'm giving AEW a pass on this. I think there are some booking decisions, and Jeff's overall arching point about trying to be a booker versus having a professional wrestling program, which becomes a media company like WWE was. Like, we're on two different worlds here. Yes, I'm okay with it simply because of some fortune they had with Kenny and Bryan both being healthy, and this is on the level with the character you're getting out of MJF right now.
Ryan, are you giving them a pass, or are they misusing the champion?
I'm kind of on the fence, and here's why. MJF's character and the build up to this match was, oh yeah, I'm not going to show up, and then flips and he's like, oh, I'm only going to do it if I go ahead and open the show. I think this. I actually think it was I think it was a good idea to put it on first, because not only do you continue to build that character, you also put your AEW World Championship on first. So with this 5-hour long show, you're putting your world title on first, yes, and some people may see it as lowering the value, but not everybody is gonna stay up till midnight to watch
It's a late show. God, it's a late show.
Yeah, and on top of that, as far as MJF Tanahashi was the only choice, because the AEW fan base doesn't know people like Shingo Takagi, Hiromu Takahashi. Everybody knows Tanahashi because he was the main event of last year's Forbidden Door with Mox. So as far as putting somebody in there that can put on at least a good match, because I think we're on the back burner of Tanahashi's career, which is sad. This was the only New Japan talent with everybody else being booked on the card.
And I'd say it's not like the IWGP World Title closed the show either. I mean, that was wedged in somewhere also. So they didn't even bookend these two titles either.
Chris Mack, let me ask this: Does this help hurt MJF? Because here's what I'm thinking in my mind. I'm thinking Roman Reigns would never. I don't care how much like MJF alludes to he wants a Roman Reigns work rate type thing, like, but Roman Reigns would never open the show at this juncture of his hip, you know what I mean? Does this take a little shine off of MJF?
I don't even know there was much shine for MJF to begin with at this point, especially in this title reign.
Talk to him.
As far as his title reign is gone, it has not paid any dividends for him, albeit probably maybe one good match with Bryan Danielson, in the Iron Man match. But as far as like anything else going on, he really hasn't blown me away with his reign, especially if he's trying to be someone like a Roman Reigns, where he isn't much of a ratings draw now since winning his title. And he doesn't really close the shows as much. And with this gimmick of him not defending the title or not being on shows or doesn't want to work Forbidden Door because he cites New Japan as an indie company, where in some aspects it's not now as it was before, like 40 years ago. But he just hasn't been exciting for me. This stuff with Adam Cole right now, I'm not really feeling it. This tag tournament that they have, teaming up the rivals, I don't know. We're going to discuss Dynamite, but it's just been pretty it's been much of a miss.
He did have
MJF now. It's been much of a miss, and him still trying to bring up 2024 when his contract running out. I don't even know if he has a lot of shine left to even consider negotiating with other companies outside of AEW. He should just stay where he's at.
He did have a great line with Adam Cole last night on Dynamite when he was like, "Oh, you got sick." He's like, "I should have thought of that." I did laugh out loud when he was like, "Adam Cole, you're here. You got sick. I should have thought of that to get out of Forbidden Door." That's a good point. And here's the thing, and EJ and I talk about this a lot in the lead up to MJF getting the title, because I thought that was really well done. I thought the lead up of MJF getting to this epic title reign was extremely well done. Really good story. Probably the best, kind of lasting storytelling AEW has done when we all put it in perspective. And now he got the title. And Jeff, I think you hit it on the head when you talk about MJF. He doesn't have anybody to wrestle. And since he's gotten the title, the stories that they've built up, the Pillar story and now this Adam Cole story, I think leaves a lot to be desired.
There's not really been anyone that's built up to face MJF except one man, and you can't even have him on Dynamite anymore.
Yeah, no, he's right. I mean, I think the problem you have with AEW is stereotypically nobody wants to do a job, and hey, when you have a wrestling company like this, everybody isn't equal. You look at the NFL, you look at the NBA, you look at all these other sports or entertainment. There's pace. There's hierarchy, there's levels, there's pay grades. I mean, everybody's not the guy or the girl. So with that being said, someone's going to have to do the job. And they don't really have anybody that either wants to or, I have no idea. And spoiler alert, I'm a Punk guy. And how he's back and he's not, again, you don't even have to, he doesn't have to win. But I'm just saying how he's not doing business with the Bucks or with MJF is just beyond me. It's a license to print money. But again,
I think
not about making money.
It's not like he doesn't want to do business with them. It's like it's the other side.
That's at least the only side of the story that we've heard so far. And that story happens to make sense to me also. But so far, Punk's been the only one who has given an interview to that side too. But yeah,
and let's be clear, they did allude. Look, whatever was in that bag at Collision when Punk returns, and we know it's the title belt. So they alluded to ultimately one of these days them trying to rectify that story. Let me go through some things because I'm not going to go through the whole card, but I am extremely impressed with the Wrestling Purist predictions here. Let me just be 100% clear. Okada over Danielson was the big one that both Ryan and Jeff, you both picked Okada going into that match. So I do want to ask, were you surprised? How were you surprised? Like, did you think during kind of the way that Forbidden Door was shaken out that did you think, oh, this prediction might be in trouble? Why did you both lean Okada going in? And then what did you think of how the outcome of that match turned out?
Yeah, both Jeff and I are big, Okada marks. So, I mean, he's one of the best wrestlers on the planet right now, bar none. So I think that we were both confident in that. And then as the card started to shake out and there weren't a lot of New Japan wins as the card was going on, it was like, okay, not feeling great about this. And then Final Countdown hit, and I was like, well, crap. That's not gonna work. That's not working.
Yeah. That should have been a dead giveaway.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And we lock all of our stuff in before even the pre-show starts or the 0 hour because they stole that from Ring of Honor. So, but we lock them all in by then. We don't get to change as the show goes on. So we got to stick to our guns, And as far as the match goes, I thought at first that the broken arm was a work. It's not.
It is not.
Nope.
No. And the fact that it happened about 10 minutes into the match and he wrestled for 20 more minutes and then mingled with fans after the fact, it goes to a testament that the pro wrestler that Bryan Danielson is. And I think that it's not a popular pick, but come PWI season, that's going to be your number one.
Oh, and might rightfully so. Absolutely. I'm with you in the sense that I figured there's got to be a way. It was after Ospreay took the belt off of Omega, which, we kind of figured. And they kind of built that main event because I did not think that Okada was going to be the main event. But when they made it the main event, you knew Ospreay was probably going to take that belt. There's only one way for AEW to stand tall at the end of the night. And that's Bryan Danielson over Okada. I was a little surprised how the match ended, honestly. But Jeff shaking his head. What do you got here?
When we're picking like our picks, it's Death, Taxes, Charlotte Flair, and Kazuchika Okada. So I'm never not picking them too. So period. But again, I didn't think Danielson was going to win because he was hurt. Well, he got beat by MJF, then he went home for a little bit, and he had a family. Then he came back and he was rough and tough, and then he did some losing. So I was like, well, I guess I'm not surprised he won, but I didn't understand. Okay, he wins, but like you said, he wins for the sake of AEW standing tall, or does he win because obviously not now with a broken arm, but does he win and then from here he goes to do what? Because if you beat Okada, or if you make Okada tap the first time in 8 years, then after that he's got to go do something. And I don't mean wrestle the elite in a directional, street fight.
He's got to go for a world title. Right?
Yes.
That would make sense, but he lost already.
and that's why I didn't pick him. That's why I was like, again, and it's not personal against Danielson. He's great. I'm not arguing with him, but it's the booking. It's why would you think he would win? And if he wins, well, then what do you do with him now? Because they haven't really booked him strong, minus when he first came in, he was kind of heelish in the beginning there. Sure. I don't care, Ring of Honor kind of, Bryan Danielson, I have until the count of 5. But after that, he was kind of just floating around a little bit.
I mean, your best bet now is he probably go for that All Atlantic title and beat Orange Cassidy because
hey, look,
that's treated as a world title more so than the one that MJF has.
Hey, now. Well, look, let's bring that up really quick because it doesn't look like anybody's beating Orange Cassidy anytime soon, and it seems like we talk about this in our group chat. Basically, every Dynamite, every Collision. Is there a harder worker in AEW than Orange Cassidy at the moment? He seems like he's on every show. He's defending the belt. He's doing long matches, and he's getting wins. Obviously, he's at a certain level in regards to stardom. Yeah. He's actually probably at a little bit lesser of a level than he was, a year and a half ago? But this guy, if you want to talk about people doing the job and working, is he the hardest worker in AEW, Orange Cassidy?
He is right now.
By a good margin. He,
Yeah.
he is. And again, he's getting booked like he should be in the world title picture. And I mean, if you were looking at people that MJF have on the face at this moment, I mean, honestly, I would choose Orange over Adam Cole at this point because,
Oof.
like, he's been the guy. He's actually been there competing and having some solid matches. He's been bringing audiences in whenever he is on the show, and he he's been booked strong. Like, how this scrawny dude right here that's be able to win these matches against any and all comers, and yet he's just relegated mainly as just the opener of the show.
I will say this: I don't watch a lot of AEW. Admittedly, I peek into it, and I want to say Orange Cassidy. Like, I've been an Orange Cassidy fan since like the first time I actually saw him in like who is this guy? Like, just wrestling with his hands in his pockets the whole time. Like, for whatever reason, like, that got my attention. And then I just kept on like, well, I want to see what this guy does. And I don't know if that resonates, if that's the same way how a lot of people are, like how they became fans of Orange Cassidy. But I mean, ever since then, like, every time I chime in and I watch a match of his, like, I'm like, all right, man, I become even more of a fan more and more.
I think he is.
Yeah.
I think when you talk about homegrown AEW stars in that sense, now Orange Cassidy had obviously an indie career and a career before he got to AEW. People knew who he was, absolutely. But if you talk about folks that really kind of grew into the personalities and the people that they are within the promotion of AEW, Orange Cassidy, the Acclaim. I'm trying to think of who are the others that kind of we talk about it on the other show.
Jamie
we talk
Hayter.
about Hater in many ways. Like, yeah, because we're like, so think about this. We talked about on the other show the rise that tribal chief rise, like kind of uncharacteristic rise of Sammy Uso and Dominic Mysterio, but like that kind of organic rise of like no one saw this kind of coming. And then they're kind of some of the bigger things in the promotion, right? The Orange Cassidy, the Acclaim. The Acclaim is one I think really came out of just fandom, right? Like, I don't think that was an idea for the Acclaim to like hold the titles in the space of what they were trying to build at the time. But when they figured out their gimmick, they figured out their story, they figured out the Scissor Me, and it just kind of took off to the rocket. Took off. I think Orange Cassidy. I'll ended with this with her. Remember, there was, I guess, one of the earlier pay-per-views for AEW, and the whole thing that just got me, Mo, was when they were trying to figure out if Orange Cassidy was even going to try. He was wrestling Pac, the Bastard Pac, and the whole thing was like the best friends are like having conversations with him, and then he looks. Ryan, do you remember this? He looks over and he's like, "Okay, I'll try." And then the best friends are like, "He's gonna try. He's gonna try," and which meant like he's gonna win because he was like if he tried, it was just the perfect thing. EJ, take us home on this and put a button on this. What did you think of the rise here of Orange Cassidy and what he's doing in AEW?
I like most of y'all, when I started seeing him, I said, okay, if he comes to AEW, which was a very, very new organization, because I saw a lot of his matches in bars on YouTube. Him and Danhausen would pal around prior to their AEW premieres. And I said, well, if this guy's gimmick is going to be hands in the pockets doing this, then I don't think he'd have much impact on the show outside of a comedy act, much the way Danhausen sort of has played a great role in being. But he had a gimmick that got fans over. Turns out he can wrestle, and they've just morphed both into a very cool character. I mean, this wouldn't work if he really couldn't go. So he can go. Totally can go, and he's kept enough of this character. I can't see him right now ever doing another character because no one would ever see anything. He has made this his own. If for the same reason I don't ever seeing him really being a serious contender to the world title, because it does at some point strain a little bit of credibility if you're in a world title match, you're the world champion, you get your hands in your pockets for a period of time. So every organization needs guys like that to play that part too. Can be a legitimate title holder, and it's okay if some guys are. I mean, I wrote a list down earlier today of a very crowded, what I perceived as the top notch of AEW guys who should be in main event programs, and I got to 38 people, and I was pretty discerning also, guys who legitimately should be in the main event picture, and there's 38. So the problem
is Orange Cassidy one of them?
Well, of course he's one of them.
Okay.
Of course he's one of them.
I didn't know where you're going with that.
The upper echelon, of course he's one of them.
Okay.
In that, and it's just what sort of also ties back to the thought about there's no one who wants to lose right now. When you got 38 people vying for the very top spot, that's just how it's going to have to be for a while. And like we say about a lot of things, if you're gonna give someone like OC credit for what he's made of himself, you got to give Tony Khan credit too. But you got to give Tony Khan a lot of criticism for creating the situation for us.
Let me ask this, EJ, because you mentioned you can't see someone like OC changing characters. Last night, we saw the genesis of according to AEW, a big character change, a big heel turn. Are we buying Jungle Boy as now? Look at Ryan. Ryan is shaking his head. Are we buying the new Ryan? Ryan, you start us off because you were. Are we buying the new Jungle Boy as the heel of all heels?
Not a cold chance in hell. Are you kidding me? He's at best the Wish version of Christian Cage. Okay. Now he can't look. We already figured this out when they were doing the 4 pillars build. He can't cut promos.
No,
guys, he can't. So the whole point of being a heel and building your heel character is to be able to convince fans and to convince people watching that you are a heel. And how do you do that? Not only by what you do in the ring and heelish tactics, but you cut promos. And he can't do it. And it just reminded me of just Christian Cage, but just the Wish version.
Mo, were you not impressed did you see last night Jungle Boy's heel turn or no?
No, I know about it. I'm aware of it. When I first saw the clip of it on Twitter, I was like,
sorry.
Like, what's going on? Like, I just
running away from Hulk.
I couldn't believe it from the start. No. And I saw the promo. I saw his promo actually yesterday. Clips early this morning. I saw clips of it that I'm not convinced. I'm just not convinced. I can't see it. It's just no.
Not only are you not convinced, you also just look at it and you just don't buy it.
Yeah.
He's not convinced. I don't buy it. He's not. He hasn't even developed enough to be a properly good wrestler.
And the smartest thing,
personality.
The smartest thing they could have done and should have done was just put him back with Christian, right? If he's gonna turn heel, put him back with Christian Cage. Yeah.
Or you put him back at Christian Cage, and then him and Luchasaurus come together and turn on Christian.
Yeah, absolutely. But you got plenty
like
of things.
Judgment Day?
But let Christian Cage be the lead, because he might be right now. As it currently is constructed, Christian Cage is probably the biggest heat magnet in all of AEW.
Listen, I'm
professional.
Listen, I'm going to tell you a quick story. We went to AEW in DC. I parked in a parking garage. I get out the car. Matt Hardy and Christian are walking into the venue. Right. I asked Matt, "Hey man, you mind if I get an autograph?" He said, "Sure." Got his autograph. I never asked Christian. Christian looked like the biggest dick ever, like at all. And then he turned to me and was like, "Okay, come on." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So he is the gimmick. That is who he is.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That is great. But yeah, I'm with you guys. I don't think anybody's buying this.
He needs to get his hair cut, and he needs to go and talk to MJF's supplier, so they can figure something out.
I tell you, a Hollywood Jack Perry gimmick with Anna Jay on his side could be intriguing.
Could work.
I'm not gonna say it's got some. It might have some legs. I want to give a quick shout out to my Tuesday co-host TG, who had a great line while we were watching Dynamite. He said it's really interesting that this first feud is going to be a guy who can't talk attacking a guy who refuses to talk. So that's
absolutely.
It's going to be a mess,
gentlemen.
too.
we are coming up a little bit over the hour. We try to keep the show very concise. Let me ask this though, because we kind of alluded to it when we started talking about AEW in general. We alluded to it when we talked about Forbidden Door. If you watched Dynamite last night, the main event was the Painmaker and Sammy Guevara and Sting. Like, what are we setting ourselves up for when we talk about AEW moving forward? Because I do think, as you mentioned, there's a lot of question marks outside of what I do think is a really good storyline between the Blackpool Combat Club and the Elite. I actually like that. I enjoy that. That actually makes me think that there is potential for some real storytelling, tension, rivalry there. But as we move forward, I mean, I'm assuming BCC and the Elite are going to keep doing what they're doing, but outside of that, especially coming off of Forbidden Door, where you have a bunch of these one-off matches, last night in Dynamite, you have, I think, a main event that doesn't really advance a story, right? So where do we see AEW going with some of their creative here? Like we've got the Collision versus the Dynamite type thing, but where do you see this kind of where does it get legs is the question I have, and what do the legs look like?
Okay, so there's from now until the end of August, AEW has four big shows that they're going to have in the span of a month. You have Blood and Guts.
Mm-hmm.
You have All In, which is going to be in Wembley. And then you go right back to Chicago again for All Out. And then I believe there's a Grand Slam show mixed.
Yeah, there's a
there
back,
as well.
They're back at they're back at Ash Center in New York. They're back in Queens.
What will they have to really stretch any of this out? Because we would suspect that the Elite and Blackpool Combat Club would end in Blood and Guts, right?
I think so. Blood and Guts is what they're.
And then maybe we will see what MGF and Cole, they'll try to have it for All Out. I don't know they're going to do it for All In, and I don't think they're going to do it for Grand Slam either. They're probably stretching out the tag tournament, maybe to get something going. But after seeing what we saw last night on Dynamite, there's a lot of questions that they need to figure themselves out, because it was a very skeleton crew that they had out there, and I was not trying to sit through a 6-man tag featuring Matt Menard and the rest of 2.0.
I love Daddy
13 minutes felt like 20.
I love Daddy Magic. Love him. Let me bring in the Wrestling Purists guys to cap us off here. Where do you guys think AEW goes in the future? Like I said, Wembley's a huge show. They've got Blood and Guts coming up as well. Like I think the Wembley show is the one that everybody has their bullseyes on. But where do we kind of see creatively what Tony Khan, the ultimate booker, but not storyteller, where do we think he goes with this?
So I think Blood and Guts is going to be a blip on the radar, right, just as it was last year. It's guys like Eddie Kingston and Mox going against Chris Jericho and just a bunch of random jobbers.
I don't think Kingston's even going to be in the match though, because if it's going to be in July 19th, then he's not going to be there. He's in G1.
Oh yeah,
for ungodly reason they have him in G1 Climax. Yet they're booking this storyline around him.
He's living his best life, Eddie Kingston.
Yeah, that's another hot button issue we're not going to get into, because if you want to get out of here on time, Eddie Kingston, of all people on the AEW roster, he's the guy you picked to go to the G1 to represent AEW.
Look at Jeff.
Sorry.
Audio casting noise right there.
Oh, that's great. That's awesome.
I think what's really important here for the build is what type of show is All In going to be? Is it going to be more along the lines of the traditional All In, or like a Forbidden Door, where we're going to have some one-off matches? We're going to heavily involve a lot of UK talent, and that'll be the basis for that show. Or are you going to have an All In show, be like an All Out, and then a week later have an All Out show?
No, you're exactly right. You're exactly right.
Logic says to focus on the UK talent for the All In show, maybe have Pac versus MJF would be fantastic. I think that would be an excellent main event match you can build on. But
where is Pac?
That's a great question.
Yeah, this man takes sabbaticals every 6 months.
I was like, it would be great in theory, but I don't even see him on Collision. Well,
Getting paid to do nothing like everybody else in AEW.
Yeah,
I was like, Scorpio Sky's gonna be back.
Oh, yeah, but I think a lot of the booking for that show is gonna really. I think we'll start to see it for this show. What kind of show that'll be? About right after Blood and Guts, because if you're gonna build the Blood and Guts, okay, that's fine. You're gonna have about 2 weeks to do that, but then from Blood and Guts to that, you're gonna have about 5 to 6 weeks to build for that show. So you have 3 shows on syndicated television every single week. There's no reason why 2 weeks before a show, you should only have 3 matches announced, and then days before the show, have a card of 14 matches.
That's what happens all the time. Yeah. Gentlemen, this has been a lot. This has been great. This has been a lot of fun.
Sure has.
It's a super show. Really quick, our special guests, Jeff and Ryan, tell everybody where they can follow you, where they can catch the podcast. It really is awesome and exciting. We thank you so much for coming.
Of course, it was absolutely our pleasure. You can find the Wrestling Purists Podcast on Twitter at WPPod1. You can find us on TikTok at WPPod1. We're on Apple, Spotify, wherever you can stream a podcast, we're there. You can also head to our website, which is on our Twitter page, and those are direct links to all of our direct sites.
Yeah, thank you again. Thank you for having us on. The pleasure is all yours.
Thanks, guys. Hey, it's super short notice as well for people that'll be listening to this podcast or following on YouTube. Oftentimes we're always trying to get our friends on the shows, and it happens. It was one of those things where I ran across the Wrestling Purist, knew I had him in the back of my mind, but then I was like, as always, EJ knows this. I'm like, oh crap, it's Thursday. And both at very short notice, Ryan and Jeff were able to come on the show. They knocked it out of the park. They're better than us, and we know it. So thank you guys. Thank you so much. And you are friends now, so you will be friends of our show, and we'll obviously love anytime we'll return the favor anytime we can. So thank you guys so much.
Awesome. Appreciate you guys having us on, welcoming us in. Also, Hulk Hogan's main evented 1/5 of all WrestleManias. Never forget that.
Never forget. TG is who weighed in with a Anna JAS comment there. Is a perfect person to talk. He co-hosts. EJ mentioned he co-hosts our Tuesday show, and he grew up on the saying his prayers and taking his vitamins. So it's a big conversation to have. Gentlemen, we're going to take you down, and we're going to wrap this thing up. Good friends from No Words Bar, tell us what you guys got going on your wonderful show. What's been happening recently in the world? A lot of things happening in wrestling and sports and culture, so I know how y'all get down. Tell us what's been going on, fellas.
So far, we're going to have some things cooking right now. Next week we will have our next episode coming up. We're looking to discuss, what's going on in NBA free agency, because everything is starting to pop off. The new CBA is about a season away, but moves are already being made to just already curtail that, and big trades has happened. Me being a Wizards fan, like we're in a total rebuild.
Good luck.
Bradley Beal's
That's
gone.
all right.
Good luck.
We got the pool party, baby.
Yeah, Chris Paul for a week.
Yeah, hey,
for a couple hours.
We weren't going to have him, but we ended up getting Jordan Poole, man. That's all that matters, man. So he's going to jumpstart the rebuild very well for us, with these picks, and I'm looking forward to see what he could do while we're losing by 20.
Exactly.
Night. I can't wait.
Look, as long as those ticket prices don't go up, I'm just fine, because that's the greatest thing about the Wizards in all franchise sports. You can get a great Wizard seat for about $25-$30.
I'm probably going to head back up there. Me and Mo, we're going to get some tickets to the courtside lounge.
That's right.
Make sure you get them, gentlemen. As always, I appreciate your insight. I love your show. We will be back on. We're going to do this. This is family, so we'll do this anytime. Thank you for joining us. Woo! EJ the Collector.
We went an hour 15, and I could do another hour 15.
We got so much going on, but we are going to get out of here. EJ, what are people? This is Thursday. You got a whole new show coming up on Tuesday. What can people expect?
Well, we have Money in the Bank this weekend. It's going to happen on Saturday afternoon. So we're going to review that. I think a lot's going to go down this weekend. That's going to set the course, probably set sail right through the summer and SummerSlam. And after SummerSlam, man, it's WrestleMania season just about.
All right. I feel like we just got out of WrestleMania season and we're going right back into it afterwards. Money in the Bank. You're going to say, no, hey, did you do your prediction on Tuesday? You did. You held some 2 weeks ago.
We had our predictions 2 weeks ago.
Quickly refresh. Who comes home to the briefcases?
Well, I think Kelsey and TG and I all were in agreement that I think, and TG Tuesday even more so, he said, than previous, is pretty sure Damian Priest is going to take the briefcase. I am holding out hope that LA Knight is going to grab that thing, but I kind of think it might be Priest to win, especially the way they're setting up the next chapter of the Judgment Day story. On the women's side, Kelsey definitely thinks Trish is going to take it home. I think Tom and I both saw Io Shirai, maybe
Io Sky,
going with that one and winning that, and looking forward to seeing what Cody and Dom are going to do. The most over, the most hated person in wrestling right now. So, yeah, we'll talk about it Tuesday. There'll be a Monday Night Raw that'll also happen. And Tom and Kelsey and I will talk about it all on Tuesday.
So there is a Collision on Saturday. There's a pay-per-view on Saturday. We didn't even talk about how they did my man Mello dirty on Monday Night Raw.
Mello's going to be okay.
And then we'll be all right. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we got to count this thing out. 1, 2, 3. Until next